Okay, the first question we have is my wife cheated numerous times and claims it was because she was unhappy. When I found everything out, it literally broke me. We've been separated for a year, but I do go over there and spend time with her and the kids from time to time. What can I do to prevent a divorce?
This is a great question. And it's a question that a lot of the people, when they contact Marriage Helper, are asking the exact same thing. My spouse is wanting out. What can I do to save my marriage? Or what can I do to stop my divorce? And actually, I'm not going to get too much in the weeds on that unless you want to in just a minute, but those are actually a little bit of two different things because you have to first identify the goal. His goal, what can I do to stop a divorce? Here's the information that we know. His wife has cheated and claims it's because she was unhappy. They have been separated for a year, but there is still some contact because she has the kids. And so he goes over there to spend time with the kids as he should. So in this situation, we know from our experience at Marriage Helper that the wife is likely experiencing one of two things. We know that she's cheated, but there's several different types of affairs. At Marriage Helper, we talk about 3 different types of affairs. The fact that she's cheated numerous times, and we don't know if these are short-lived affairs or if they are multiple affairs that extend over longer periods of time and have more of an emotional component to them, we would call those the ones that have an emotional component that actually last a little bit longer, where a person actually falls in love or feels like they're madly in love with someone else. We would call those limerent affairs. And if that's the situation, we need to talk about it one way. Put a pin in that. The second situation that I mentioned, if it's a bunch of one-night stands, if it's a primarily sexual affair that this woman is having over and over and over, you'd actually deal with that a little bit differently. Actually, quite a bit differently. But let's assume, because most of the time it is limerent affairs, it's a chasing after that feeling of being madly in love. And if someone is involved in multiple affairs over time, then sometimes people refer to them as limerence addicts, which is a little bit of a misnomer, but it's basically the idea of this is a person who's chasing that feeling of being madly in love. And there's a lot of chemical reactions that happen in our brain that lead to that feeling happening. And so maybe she was unhappy in the marriage. She says that she was, but if she's in limerence, she could also be rewriting history to reflect whatever she wants it to be so that she can kind of feel better about or not feel as guilty about being involved in the affairs that she's in. So what can he do to prevent a divorce? I've been talking about it, filling in a lot of backstory, which we may know, we may not know. But if it's a limerent affair, then you need to realize that they have a course of action. They have a time frame that they typically follow. And according to the research, that typically falls in a bell curve of anywhere from 3 months to 48 months. There may be some outliers that go as long as 60 months, which is 5 years. Very extreme cases can be 10 years, things like that. But typically they have a shelf life, so to say. Now, if you know that that is true, understanding that his wife is in something that has a shelf life changes a little bit of the approach that he should have. Now, at Marriage Helper, we teach that the first thing that you should do when you're wanting to prevent a divorce is change the way that you're communicating with your spouse. So if you're doing things that are pushing her away, if you're doing what we call push behaviors, which stand for, I won't go through the whole thing, but it's basically pleading, begging, doing things that are trying to win your spouse back, but it's actually just pushing them even further away when you do it, then immediately stop doing those things and start doing, because it's not enough to just think about what we need to stop doing. We need to replace those negative habits that we used to have with something positive. Replace those things with working on yourself, which we call working on your pies, and also with doing the right way of communicating with your spouse, which we call smart contact. So to prevent divorce, you definitely want to make sure that you're stopping the push behaviors, but that you're also keeping an open line of communication. That when you're going to see your kids, when you're going over there to see your kids, that you ask about, first of all, some of those non-emotional items, what we call business items. Ask about, hey, how is work going? How are the kids doing in school? Ask about things that you have a common ground about, but it's not going to be things like, are you still in love with that other person? Are you still having that affair? Are you sure that you want to actually move forward with a divorce? Those questions are not going to move you toward getting back to a neutral ground and then being able to focus on possibly saving the marriage from there. So if you want to prevent a divorce, the other part of this that I will add that makes it a little different than if you have a goal of just saving the marriage is that if a divorce becomes a part of the conversation, if she files, if you realize that you need to get an attorney, then you do need to protect yourself. We always recommend that. But just because a divorce is filed, just because papers are given or anything like that, if she's filed or you have received papers, it doesn't mean that there's no hope. However, you do need to make sure that the way that you move forward, and I won't go much deeper into this because we talk a way more about it in some of the courses that we have, and we can get more specific and more in depth here. Remember, we at Marriage Helper are never telling you what to do. We always recommend that you seek legal counsel, but you can move through the divorce process in such a way where you make it clear that you want to save the marriage, but you also make it clear that you're not going to be a doormat that can just be walked on. And I don't really have the time or space to go more into that. So bottom line is realize with the type of affair it is, if it's limerence, it has a shelf life, do what you can to be the best version of yourself that can hopefully attract her back. Stop doing the things that are unattractive to her, that are pushing her away, and change the way that you're communicating through what we call smart contact. Now, really quickly, if she is having more of those one-night stands, you may be dealing with a bit of a different situation where she may actually need to get some intervention help for those behaviors and those actions. And so she may need to get to the place where she is willing to go to a type of therapy or rehab recovery for someone who is kind of in a compulsive sexual behavior mindset or state. So that is something you can't force her to do, but it does make the situation a bit different. I can't really at this time go more into depth on how to do that. Bill, where should we recommend people learn more about how they can get started with implementing the behaviors that I just talked about?
Absolutely. The best resource we have if somebody wants to start today, like listen to this, watch this, and actually start within the next 10, 15 minutes, is actually signing up for our free mini course, where Kimberly has created a 3-video series on this almost this exact topic. This might sound like a very unique question, but these are questions that we get asked every day. Mm-hmm. And this question started off with is, how do I prevent divorce? The real question you're asking is, how do I save the marriage? Mm-hmm. So you need to first figure out how you got here, how to move forward and have a sense of hope, and what are practical steps you can take today to start pulling your spouse back to you and saving the marriage. We can't guarantee, like Kimberly just said, we cannot guarantee anything. That is something we do not do. But with working with thousands of couples with over 20 years of experience of saving marriages in crisis, this mini course is the right first step for you today, if this is a question that you've had. If you'd like to get signed up, there's going to be a link on the screen at the end of this video or right now, as well as in the YouTube description. Thanks so much for watching this video. If you'd like to learn more about upcoming dates of our workshop or just about the workshop in general, please click right here. If you'd like to take a free course and start learning about the 3 things you can do to start bringing your spouse back, click right here. As always, please consider subscribing, liking this video, and turning on notifications so you can learn and be notified when new videos like this one come out. We'll see you in the next video.